Chapter 4 is our chapter dedicated to the third of the 5 idle books called Service Transition. In this chapter, we have 6 lessons. Lesson 1 is an overview of the book, where we'll discuss the purpose of service transition and the value it provides to the business. Lesson 2 is where we'll introduce Service Asset and Configuration Management, a process dedicated to tracking all of the various components of our IT services. Lesson 3 is our longest lesson in this chapter, which describes the process of change management. Change management is how we control changes to the IT services and the infrastructure. In Lesson 4, we'll move on to an exciting process called Release and Deployment Management, which is the process where we techies finally get our hands dirty by building, testing, and installing services and components. Lesson 5 quickly introduces Knowledge Management, which provides us a way to take what's in our brains and get them into a database or two. And as always, we'll conclude our chapter with a series of sample questions, which we'll review in Lesson 6. Lesson 1 is our Service Transition Overview. Here on the left is our trusty service lifecycle ball. If you remember our story, I asked you to envision a group of lawyers who just graduated law school. These folks decided while sitting in a diner to start up their own law firm. The lawyers wrote down some of their needs and business requirements on the back of a diner placemat. This list of requirements was in business person speak, not techie speak. The list said, we need computers for our 25 employees, and we also need the ability to print, we'll need email, and we'll need internet access, and it can't cost more than $75,000. This list of requirements is the key output of the service strategy phase and gets handed off to the service design phase. So in this next phase, the service design phase, IT took their time in coming up with a design, and just a design, to solve the challenge that the business gave us back in service strategy. IT designed 5 main things called the 5 aspects of service design. IT designed the services themselves, the tools to manage their IT service management implementation, tools like the service portfolio, the service catalog, and even their service desk tool too. Also the technology and the architecture, meaning what email platform do we use, what OS, what brand of servers, what PCs and printers should we buy. Those were also designed here too. IT also designed the measurement methods and metrics, so IT would have a way to pull the reports that they need to measure their success and prove it to the customer. And they also designed the processes to make all of this work. Those 5 aspects of service design spell out the word STAMP. IT paid very close attention to the 4 P's of service design, which are people, processes, products, and partners, to ensure they had a nice balance in their IT service management implementation. Service design is a very labor-intensive phase of the life cycle, but IT knew that they had to take their time to get it right. A person called the Service Design Manager compiled a giant design document that contained all of this service design stuff that we designed, called the Service Design Package. And the Service Design Manager passed the Service Design Package off to the Service Transition phase, which is where we are now. Here in the Service Transition phase, IT will now build, purchase, test, configure, track, control, test some more, and then install IT services and components. Once the service has been installed and is plugged in and finally running, we will be in the service operation phase of the life cycle. So now you have an idea of where we've been, where we are right now, and where we're going in the service life cycle. To the right, we see a picture of the Service Transition book in case you want to pick up a copy. Lesson 1 has 3 short objectives. First, we'll cover the goals and objective of this phase. Next, we'll cover how the service transition phase benefits the business. And we'll wrap up with a quick slide showing the 7 processes found in service transition and which 4 of those will be on the exam. Business environments are in a constant state of change and transition, which means that the services IT provides are constantly changing to meet those business needs. If they don't, the business might take their business someplace else. The service transition phase, which is represented here in orange, focuses on how we can ensure that the requirements that the business dreamed up in the service strategy phase and that we mapped out and carefully designed in service design are successfully built, tested, and implemented in service transition. So once we flip that switch and turn on that service, the business can use it and we can support it in the service operation phase. We are going to rely on the guidance found in the Service Transition book when we are managing the complexity associated with managing changes to our services, also when we introduce brand new services, and changing and tweaking existing services, and retiring services that we no longer need, and this one may not be very intuitive, which is why I put it in italics here, transferring a service to an external provider, meaning we outsource it, or bringing something that used to be outsourced back in-house. You might see this list on an exam, so make sure that you associate these types of changes to the service transition phase. The main objective of the service transition phase is to figure out how to introduce new services or change existing services with a nice balance of these four important things: speed, cost, safety, and of course, focusing on giving the business what they're actually seeking. Remember that service transition is where all the action happens. Think about it. In service strategy, we were sitting around with our thinking caps on and just talking about stuff, coming up with the long-term plan. In service design, we were coming up with the designs, only using tools like Visio and whiteboards. But here in service transition, this is where the techies really start getting excited because we can finally start building stuff. We get our hands dirty here. So when you hear action words like building, testing, implementing, as well as managing all that building, testing, and implementing, you should think about service transition, especially the word test. Transition and test both start with the letter T, which is a helpful test-taking tip, which also starts with the letter T. What does the business get out of it if we have a service transition phase? There's actually a lot of value here. First, IT can be more flexible in that we can react to rapidly changing business requirements. This is important. Think about it. When Amazon.com first opened its online doors, what did it sell? Books, and only books. But now you can buy pretty much anything on Amazon. What? I want fresh chili peppers imported from Thailand? Amazon has it. I need makeup remover and a hat shaped like a giant hot dog? Amazon's got that too. So every time Amazon decided to change their business model, IT had to change their offerings to keep up with the business. So agile equals good, and this gives you a competitive edge. Also, if your organization is affected by things like mergers, demergers, acquisitions, outsourcing, or bringing formerly outsourced things back in-house, then service transition will help that transition go smoothly. Now this one's probably the most important. Once we get really good at all these service transition processes, we'll be able to handle a larger volume of changes, and the success rate will be much higher too. Next, if your organization gets audited, you will almost definitely be asked about how your organization manages, coordinates, and tracks changes. Service transition, and especially a process within service transition called change management, addresses this. Auditors love to see a healthy change management process. You'll also get better at estimating how much projects cost and how many people and things you'll need to accomplish it. Also, the productivity of the folks on the business side will be improved because the IT services they use to do their jobs will be broken less often. Another nice perk is you can save on maintenance contracts. Let's say you decommission a server. If you record its decommission in a database someplace, then ideally it'll trigger someone in supplier management to stop paying for the support contract on it. And lastly, the service transition phase provides value to the business by helping us better understand the level of risk that comes with making changes to our IT services. If you were to crack the service transition book, you would see that the book contains 7 processes. However, the EIDL version 3 foundation exam syllabus only requires that we cover 4 out of these 7. The 4 processes that we'll cover are in bold here. That's change management, service asset and configuration management, release and deployment management, and knowledge management. Now that we have a little roadmap, let's move on to lesson 2, where we'll talk about the process called service asset and configuration management.